through the camera to know what it is. I mean, that kind of revolution in healthcare for a country of our geography is a tremendous advantage, and that's where the NBN will take us.
Troy, are you satisfied with that answer? Is this the sort of thing you want to see?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Good on you. Troy, thank you. Let's get to our next question.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for the opportunity. My name is Ron. I'm a retired engineer and a bulldog tragic. My query regards lack of publicity of achievement. In June 2010, following a change of leadership of the Labor Party, which I'm sure you remember, Kevin Rudd addressed the media and spoke of the achievements of the government since taking over from the Howard government. I'm sure that many people, like me, were greatly before. I believe that your government has fallen into the same pattern. You've achieved a lot, but failed to effectively gain publicity for those achievements. Prime Minister, what will you do in the coming months to sell your accomplishments to the electorate?
Thanks, Ron. Well, you're right, our footy team got smashed on the weekend, so that's a problem to recover from. On taking the message out, I mean, you can always learn things and do better, and I'm certainly prepared to. And then there's, I think, some things about the way we get information today and the speed of the information and, you know, what's new. We're in a time of real change in the media. It's not just us, it's happening all over the developed world. And I'm not sure that any of us has quite worked out the way of having some really complicated public policy debates during this time. So I often feel like there's a sea of information out there today, but it's so much that it's hard for people to pick up what bits really matter to them. And then from the point of view of, you know, the people who do our media, they've got to move, you know, really quickly because to sustain attention in a world where things move quickly, they've got to move quickly. So David can't be on at 9 o'clock in the morning talking about the same thing that he's talking about at 9 o'clock that night, and he does work those kind of hours, because, you know, people would say, oh, you know, we're not going to watch that again. But, you know, some of our really complicated public policy debates, what is the best way of making sure children get a great education? Well, I think I've got a really good idea. But, you know, could we do that over 12 hours of TV? I'd love to. But I now that makes it harder to communicate and get the feedback that we need, ironically, even though we live in an age of more information than ever before. And I think we're all still, in some ways, finding what's the new rhythm for democracies in this age of really intense information. So maybe there's some things that we could do better. Maybe there's some big questions there to think about democratic practice and dialogue during the age we live in now, where things happen so fast.
Well, hopefully forums like this are a bit of the answer as well in getting some of that policy debate going. Thanks so much for that, Ron. Now let's get to...
Officer. Given there's a large number of people who own multiple homes and a large number of Australians who own no home, would you work towards abolishing negative gearing on non-owner-occupied properties and giving tax breaks for owner-occupied mortgages?
Thanks for your question, Greg. We're not intending to change anything about negative gearing because it is a policy. I mean, people have their views about the fairness of it, and, you know, sort of there's a public policy debate itself, the fairness of it. But certainly if you made any big changes to negative gearing, you'd really change the way the property market works, and in particular you'd change the way the rental market works and people's preparedness to invest in the creation of second properties that other people rent and live in. So it's not our intention to do that. In our system, there are a number of tax breaks for the family mortgage, and that's appropriate because we do want to see people owning their own homes. And I'm glad that, you know, with interest rates where they are now, I mean, over the life of our government, your average mortgage is costing people $5,000 less a year than it used to, and that's good. That's a good measure for housing affordability, lower interest rates and consequently lower mortgage repayments. And we've also invested too on the side of creating more affordable rental properties, because there's lots of people who would like to own, can't own, and do need access to quality, low rent properties. So that's the approach we've taken. We're not intending to change anything about negative gearing.
Is there anything, though, PM, that you'll offer before the election to try and tackle this issue of home ownership and affordability?
I mean, our main setting has been if we can keep the, strong economy, tight on the government budget, the budget AAA rated, all the ratings agencies tight on the government budget.
Leave it in the Reserve Bank's hands.
Well, on mortgage affordability, and then there are things we can do for social housing, low-income housing, and we've got a number of those policies. They take a while to set up and to take effect, so it's not a question of short-term changes, it's a question of them being part of the backdrop as investors make decisions.
Can I just test who would like to see both sides of politics doing something a bit more on home affordability? A few hands there. All right. Yes, if you can deal with the banks is the challenge there. Okay, let's get our next question.
Good evening, Prime Minister. Thanks very much for this opportunity. My name is Liam. I work as a freelance consultant on the technical side. What policies are being prepared to ensure food security for Australia? My concerns are that the Australian population already exceeds the limit proposed by Tim Flannery in his book, The Future Eaters. Other nations are buying Australian land for food production for their people. Foreigners cannot buy land in other countries, such as Thailand and Japan. And frankly, I think the Foreign Investment Review Board should try a lot harder.
And what happened, we're doing a commercial for Tim Flannery's books now, we should probably stop that, but it was a good book. On food security, look, I think I can be very reassuring about this because I actually think the facts are very reassuring. I mean, we are a nation that makes far more food than we need. We are a huge net exporter of food. So we've got farmers who are incredibly productive, have found the way of being productive even in what can be a, harsh, unpredictable land. We make a lot of food. We export a lot of food. We live in a region of the world that's got growing numbers of middle-class consumers. More than 3 billion people are going to be middle class, and they'll want quality food like the food you and I eat and we get the opportunity to eat here in Australia. So big export industry for us now, and it will be bigger in the future. In terms of foreign investment in land, yes, it is possible for people to invest in land. They don't get to take the land away, so we'll always be, in control and in command of what happens on Australian soil. So I don't think we've got anything to fear there. And when you actually look at the statistics as to how much foreign investment there's been in land, it is proportionately very. So I don't think we have to worry there either. We do always check, we have rules for foreign investment coming in. We have a national interest test for major foreign investments. It's applied rigorously. But our nation tends to be one that looks for investment. We want to grow. So investment's a good thing. Got to meet national interest tests. We make sure that it does. And I think the settings are right for the way in which we look at foreign investment. I think, the other side of the coin here is if we tightened up, less foreign investment, it would actually mean less jobs, less growth in our economy, and we don't want to end up there.
Thanks, Nell. Let's get to our next question if we can.
Thank you, Prime Minister. George, I'm a retired teacher. I want to raise reasonable new tax. I pay me tax on my $80,000 a year I draw, which I would pay if I was still working.
Right.
Someone wants to pay tax.
I'm a socialist at heart.
Well, that's a very unusual question. I've done a lot of